Hi, Year 8. This is Mr. Bono, and I want to walk you through your most recent task. For 8T, you're going to be doing this on Wednesday, the 10th, because you have a double period. 8E, you're going to be doing this on Tuesday and Wednesday because you just have a single each of those days, okay? I don't want you to be confused. Now, so look at the assignment in your class's classwork section. So when you open this task, it says, today's task is about ending a story well. Okay, we're doing creative writing. You'll be writing your own stories. And so this is to help us understand how to bring a story to an effective close. Okay, I'm recording this video guide to walk you through the lesson and your tasks for this lesson, and then you can upload your work. Okay, so I'm going to click on this link for story endings. Okay. And it opens the document. Now, here are some ideas. This is the first part of your task. Here are some ideas about what is important when ending a story. Put them in order from 1 through 7. The most important is 1 and the least important is 7. You can just write the numbers beside the statements in this document if you're editing it, but I think the best way to do it is in your notebook, and you can just write the numbers in order. So for example, let's read the first statement. The ending ought to refer back to the beginning in some way, okay? So this is saying, if you're ending a story well, you should be going back in some way to point to the beginning of the story, to let the readers know maybe what's changed, okay? If you think that's the most important thing, then that's number 1. And in your notebook, you can just write number 1. Okay, you don't need to copy that sentence again. Okay, the next criteria here is everything should be sorted out in the ending. You can think about your favorite movies. Do you think a movie ends well only if everything is sorted out in the end? Or can there be some problems still left over in the ending? Okay, again, rank how important you think that is. The ending should be exciting. How important is that? There should be a twist. Something unexpected should happen. Okay, again, how important is that? The ending should hang. We should be left to work it all out for ourselves. Okay, have you ever seen those movies where it comes to a close, the screen goes black, and you go, wait, but I don't know if the person lived or died, or whatever the case may be. Okay, is that important? The ending should be a cliffhanger. It should feel like the beginning of a new story. Okay, so that's related to the one before. Okay, and does it feel like it's going to lead into a new episode? Is that important? Now, go ahead and identify what order you think those are in. Now, there's no right answer here, okay? This is just to get you sort of thinking and evaluating different ways to end a story, okay? And then we're going to go on to this next section, and it'll make us question it. So pause your video, complete that first section in your notebook, okay, and then go on to the part 2 here. Okay, when you finish part 1, you'll continue. 3 possible endings for a story called The Heroes. Okay, your job here is just to read these with me and decide which ending you like best. You're going to soon see these are almost the same until the last lines. Okay. Sarah and Tom looked back at the smoke rising from the cave. It was over. They were safe. Their families were safe, and so was their whole town. Never again would they be called cowards. The snapper was dead, and it was they who had killed him. Throbbing with pride, the pair walked arm in arm down their street towards their homes, where they would surely be greeted as heroes. Or would they? Now, when you read that and you go back to this list, okay, you might ask yourself, Does the end refer back to the beginning in some way? Well, we don't know because we haven't read the beginning. Okay? But maybe it does. Is everything sorted out in the end? Maybe, maybe not. Is the end exciting? Is there a twist, something unexpected that happens? Well, there's a hint that something unexpected could happen. The ending should hang. We should be left to work it all out for ourselves. There is a little bit of something left unclear there. Okay? And we don't know how they'll be received. And finally, the ending should be a cliffhanger. It should feel like the beginning of a new story. It does have that feeling, doesn't it? As if they're walking into the town and there's a hint that they will not be received as heroes. And maybe there's a new story that begins. Okay? I won't go over those points with each one, but you get the idea of how to use them. Okay? Let's look at the second alternative ending for the same story. Sarah and Tom looked back at the smoke rising from the cave. It was over. They were safe. Their families were safe, and so was their whole town. The snapper was dead at last. They turned away and walked proudly down their street. Okay, very similar so far. But they hadn't gone more than 10 meters before they were frozen in their tracks by an angry, wailing roar. The snapper was back, and this time he was 10 times larger and 10 times fiercer. How do you feel about that as an ending? If it's Netflix, I'm guessing you're skipping right ahead to the next episode. And number 3, Sarah and Tom looked back at the smoke rising from the cave. It was over. They were safe, their families were safe, and so was their whole town. Never again would they be called cowards. Throbbing with pride, the pair walked arm in arm down their street towards their homes, where everybody greeted them as heroes. Okay, all the same so far. John and Sam apologized to them for calling them cowards, and never again were they made to feel miserable at school. In fact, they were very happy. Eventually, they got married and had 3 children and started their own dragon taming business. Okay, now, if we go back to this list, okay, the one that stands out most is the second one. Everything should be sorted out in the ending. That's definitely the case for the third ending. So do you like it? Which ending do you like best? Okay, write that down and just briefly write why in your notebook. Which ending do you like best? 1, 2, or 3, and why? Okay, pause your video while you do that. Okay. Now we're going to move on to the next part of the lesson. Okay, we're going to read the opening and the ending of a story called Night of the Stick Insects by Alan Durant. You got any pets? Dog, cat, goldfish, maybe? Well, Tommy had lots of pets, jars and tanks of them. Tommy bred stick insects, though I guess it wouldn't be quite right to call them pets. His pet was really the gecko lizard that lived in the big glass tank on his chest of drawers. Every now and then, he'd get that out and, pet it, stroke it, chat to it, that kind of thing. The stick insects, well, they had other uses. Some of them he sold, and he'd made a fair amount of cash, too. It was amazing how many kids were willing to pay him for the brown stick-like things. At school, there was a craze for them. Tommy thought, and the story continues. So that's the opening. Okay. Now, in the notes column, you can notice a few things. Okay, the language is a little bit fancy, but I'll make it clear for you. At the beginning, the speaker is talking directly to the audience and is a little bit challenging, aggressive. It's not a very friendly tone. You got any pets? Dog, cat, goldfish, maybe, as if they're pushing you to talk. Okay, it's a very chatty tone, like a conversation. Okay, and it makes you wonder about this person that's talking. Who is this? Okay, and that might be enough to make you want to keep reading. Okay, when he mentions that he has other uses for the stick insects, Tommy does, it makes you wonder. It sounds a little, as it says there in the margin, sinister or evil. Both of these people sound like they could be a little bit unpleasant, that maybe they're using animals or they don't mind that. Okay, that they don't care about the well-being of the insects. Okay, and we'll leave that piece there. Let's go on to the ending. By the dark, dark, early hours of the morning, Tommy's room was thick with stick insects, grown to a gigantic size, some the size of Alsatian dogs. In the blackness, they hissed and clicked as if in angry conversation discussing what to do. It was to this that Tommy awoke. His first thought was that he was having another nightmare. And even when they lifted him from his bed with their sturdy tree trunk limbs, he could not believe it was real, that this was actually happening. It was only when they lifted him toward the huge, open, slimy, tooth-filled mouth of the now monstrous gecko that he understood the full, real horror of the situation. And by then, he was half inside, and it was too late. So, very dramatic. Now the question is, did you see this ending coming in any way? Was there any hint that maybe the ending naturally comes from the beginning? Well, we could see that he was maybe not a nice character, that he was using the insect in ways that were not nice. And it maybe gives you the feeling that he deserves some kind of punishment. Now, we wouldn't have guessed this kind of punishment, or that he had something bad coming to him because he wasn't behaving nicely in the beginning. Okay? Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with breeding and selling insects, okay? But it just gives you a feeling in the beginning that comes to light in the end, okay? In other words, the ending belongs to the beginning. It comes from the beginning, okay? So we're going to take that concept and move into your task for today, okay? We're going to read a story opening to a story called The Secret of Trencher's Hill. We'll read it together here. Okay, and then you need to answer 3 questions that will help you do the last part of the task, which is to write an ending, the last 50 words to this story. Okay, so let's look at the questions. What do we know from the story opening? What can we deduce or work out? And what do we expect will happen at the end? Okay, so let's have a look. The Secret of Trencher's Hill. It heaved up out of the darkness, a darker shape against the darkening sky. If ever there was a time to run, then this was it. But they couldn't run. They couldn't move. They couldn't even breathe. Sarah's fingers dug deeply into David's arm in horror. Slowly but steadily, the shape swelled until its ragged outline loomed over them, the light wind brushing and blurring its furry edges. "It's alive," Sarah finally gasped. "What have we done?" But David only shook his head slightly. At last he knew the secret of Trencher's Hill, and now he understood what the old man had meant when he had warned them not to mess with the past. Now that's just the beginning of the story. Okay, so what do we know from the story opening? Well, let's go back and see. There's some kind of monster. Okay, and it's huge. And there are 2 characters, okay, David and Sarah. And they have some responsibility for bringing this monster to life, it seems. Okay, because she asks, What have we done? So she feels like maybe it's their fault. Okay, there's a place called Trencher's Hill and an old man who warns them about this. Okay, so that's what we know from the story opening and what we can, well, let's go on to number 2. What can we work out? I might say again that something that seemed like it wasn't alive has come to life and is going to be scary and dangerous. And I would even say Sarah and David, because they feel responsible, are probably going to be looking for a solution. They're going to feel like they have to fix this problem. And my guess would be they're going to have to get some help from this old man because he knows something. Now it says, it warned them not to mess with the past. So somehow some things happened before, maybe that put this creature to sleep to begin with. And that's going to come into play in the story. Okay? That's what I guess, but you might deduce differently and take your story in a different direction. Okay? So your task is this. Write the last 50 words of The Secret of Trencher's Hill. Make the ending belong to the opening. In other words, the ending should come from the ideas that we get in the beginning. Okay? There's no right way to do this. Okay? But use what you've learned in this lesson about endings and have some fun with it. Okay? I would say you should spend about 20 minutes at least writing this last part. Okay, good luck.